Episode 1, Pilot. World went to shit. John Walker woke from his 8-hour sleep on the morning of October 29th, 2016, to a chill rolling in from the window left wide open the night before. Pillow and looked to the side, whilst clenching himself to keep warm from the now frozen cold room. After stepping out of bed, John walked over to the bathroom connected to his bedroom and viewed his own appearance through the mirror hanging over the hair-covered sink, knowing that he's going to be spending another day in hell. He walked towards his door, opened it, and walked out into the hallway. Approaching the kitchen area, he looked out the window to a street crowded with cars and geared up to start another day. He poured himself a bowl of cereal and ate it plain because he had been too lazy to go out and buy himself a carton of milk the night before. Minutes later, John was dressed up in a business suit and tie, clean shaven and hair parted to the left. He picked up his car keys off of the counter and walked out the door, before hopping in his car and pulling out of the street. Route 101. On driving up Route 101, the sounds of sirens and the picture of flashing lights from police cars are heard and seen driving down the opposite side of the highway. To drown out the noise, John turns on the radio, which is already set to the local news station. Just as the sound of breaking news occurs, John turns the dial to hear the soothing sounds of Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine, whilst bobbing his head slowly enough to see the road ahead of him. Greeted by a stop on the road. He then is greeted by a stop in the road as there had been a crash involving around 10 to 12 cars that had paused traffic. The cars were not moving, and there were no emergency crews around, meaning that all these people were not being helped out of their predicament anytime soon. John stepped out of his car and approached the car in front of him and asked what had happened. The driver stepped foot out of the car and proceeded to tell John that one of the drivers had been hungover and ended up ramming into the back of a Ford pickup, leading to the two cars taking out countless others, before the hangover driver's car flew into a ditch about half a mile ahead of them. Just then, screaming broke out in the front of the pile, before John and the female rushed over to see what was happening. Upon hearing the screams die off, they stopped at a pause to see a man with cuts and blood all over his body, kneeling over the woman, dead and bloody, with his mouth hinged on her neck. Upon the horror scene, John and the lady rushed back to their cars, as more of those things roamed around the stalled cars. The lady pulled open her car door and pulled out a handgun, leaving John in question of what was happening. As one of the things had been rushing over to her, she pulled the trigger and pierced a bullet through the front of its skull, before it crashed to the ground. She urged John to follow her down the nearby exit to the back roads, as her house was not far from that point on the highway, and John did as she said. They approached two more of those things at the bottom of the exit before the woman pierced a bullet through each of their heads. She and John ran over to the home less than 2 miles away from the exit and entered her home. John quickly questioned her as to what she had just done, thinking of it as nothing more than murder. She responded to him that she had seen those kinds of things before, but only in movies. They were flesh-eating zombies, and they weren't going to stop just because we asked them to. John was quick to defuse her, saying that this was the real world, and there was no way that zombies could have somehow invaded that real world. The lady explained that if he couldn't trust her, then she was more than happy to let him go back outside and be torn apart by them. He allows himself to trust her, and asked for her name, to which she responded with a Claire. Claire moves to the kitchen table and chair towards Claire moves the kitchen table and chairs towards the front and only door, creating somewhat of a barrier between the outside world and their little safe zone. He starts asking her questions about why she is so quick to assume that this is some sort of apocalypse and not a disease that can be easily cured, and why she insists that they are out to get the living. Claire responds by telling John that she knows exactly what those things are capable of. The scenes from those movies are far too similar to what they had just seen themselves. They were too real in detail for it not to be at least similar to what was going on. John, curious as to what to do, accepts his explanation and asks what she wants him to do. She responds by telling him to go to the cellar and grab the pistols from the lockbox on the table, before tossing him the key and telling him to hurry. He does so and grabs the 2 Desert Eagle pistols from the lockbox before rushing back upstairs and meeting Claire again. She asks John on whether or not he shot a gun before, and responds with the hopeful answer of yes, before Claire tells him to shoot out the window at the zombie roaming outside the window to the side of the house. He does so and hits it in the chest twice. Claire yells to John to aim and shoot for the head, as that will be the only thing that kills them. He does so and watches blood spray out of the head as watches blood spray out of the head of the zombie. Horrified in what he had believed he had just done, she closes the window and tells John to hurry to the basement as she would meet him there. He does so and is later greeted by Claire, who tells him that they must stay there until the fewer threats are around, as that will be when they will leave the house to try to find a better and more secluded area. John comes to grips with what today has brought upon him and gears up to do whatever he needs to do to move on from this point.